today we'll look at the scenario in which Ethiopia becomes a superpower, because that just came to my mind. But this would be an interesting scenario because Ethiopia would be able to get its coast, but that would probably be a problem. But they could create coast in this scenario, which would be good for them, I guess, as they would move into the southern areas. This would be like a repeat of their border dispute war, and so on, till Ethiopia capitulates Eritrea. And that means they will annex them. They get their coastline back, get to their former size. And now for Somalia and Djibouti. But really, Somalia looks like this. Oh yeah. As Ethiopia quickly swarms Djibouti and starts their attack on Somalia, the rebels in the north, or the Somaliland, whatever you want to call it, it's really recognized as a rebel. And Somalia getting more stabilized, I guess. But Ethiopia at this point has cut them off and started making a front line. And their front line goes like that, and like this, and like that. And they recognize the independence of the rebels despite not wanting to. There's disputes with Sudan, because I know they can beat them this time, because they became a world power. And this being a good, at this point for Ethiopia, at least, there's barely little resistance. Except Egypt, which decides to declare war. And as we can tell, it's not really changing much against Ethiopia at this point, as Egypt still hasn't really entered. But Egypt does, and they have some success. Not as much as you would think. They managed to push Ethiopia halfway back, almost to their border at one point. But they didn't really secure the back of the front, which was a big deal, as Ethiopia takes opportunity to start cutting the supply lines off from behind where Egyptian troops mostly went. Some escaped, but most get stuck. Tens of thousands of troops are stuck here and end up falling, with Ethiopia asking that Somaliland help them, because they have nothing better to do. But they're waiting for a day to annex them, because they want to. But yeah. And that's being a huge embarrassment for Egypt. But Egypt sends more troops and decides to make a bigger siege. That's taking away the coast they occupied. And Ethiopia takes the opportunity to push to the Nile, a big supply area, which really restricts a lot of nations points south. That's not a big deal. And moving up the Nile. The Nile does go somewhere after, and two sides of kind of forks. Whichever way is better, but yeah. This chunk down here being injured, but Egypt, to keep its economy going, decides to start making a push against the Nile front. With Ethiopia willing to negotiate at this point, But nobody agrees, and they just move right up the coast. And they manage to keep the Nile front like that. And they move just right across. And yeah, this area declares independence. And Sudan surrenders, and Egypt then leaves the war. Somaliland declares its desire to join Ethiopia. Let's see how the treaty after the shortened supply routes. Troops are moving across into this area, which really means this area is being occupied of South Sudan. South Sudan declares this is illegitimate. Ethiopia also does this to Kenya. And then their puppet decides to occupy this fully, which is a joint occupation, I believe, which leads to the East African bloc and nations that are affected by this deciding to react. And Ethiopia probably ain't ready for this big of a conflict, but they send all their troops fast. And they start moving through here and down out of where they have troops. Over here, they make more success if they have more troops down around here. They move their troops in quickly because they do have troops all over the border. I'm going to call that the capital. I don't know where the capital is, but let's say it's somewhere in already fallen. With South Sudan falling like you would expect. With them moving down the DRC's northern border. With them deciding to move down here all the way to this lake, whatever the lake's called. And then they do this. As they start their siege of the coast and attacks down the coast. This drives Tanzania to seek peace. Thus, this seeks Tanzania's will for peace, along with Uganda's. And the Ethiopian troops still moving through this region as they're in peace. Just what they need, although these countries, remember, since they surrendered, would probably be gave up easier. With this country, Tanzania, complaining that Ethiopia ran through, but there's not much they can do but re-enter the war, which isn't a great idea at the state they're in. And then moving into Rwanda and Burundi. The Congo decides to get an ally to help Republic of Congo, which the goal is just to re-liberate their territories. Hopefully re-liberate Burundi and Rwanda at most. I'm kicking Ethiopia out. Ethiopia's like, what, peace? And they're like, sure. Kenya, not with Tanzania and Uganda, as we know, weren't fully taken out. So they'll get less harsh terms. But they'll still likely become puppets, along with most of what hasn't fallen. With Ethiopia and Sudan now ready for their peace treaty. They're now known as Empire. The Superpower is now the leader of East Africa. Not only just the Horn of Africa, but all of East Africa. So that's pretty much all for today's video. Please like and subscribe, because we're almost at 1,600 subscribers. What a bright future, because we're going to get there. Please subscribe. That's all for today's video. Hopefully you watched the full video. Bye, guys!